next episode or the latest episode or the episode you're watching, however you want to put it, of one Cardinal, one Cub, and one beer. And I do want to start by taking off my hat and saying my condolences to the Toby Keith family and all of his fans. I do not like modern country music. Shania Twain ruined it. Right before her, we had Garth Brooks, we had Dwight Yoakam,
Travis
we
Tritt.
had Brooks and Dunn. We still had country artists, and then it all went to pop stuff. But Toby Keith, he was still a country artist. And in 2006, I used to go to a lot of concerts, mostly rock concerts. But in 2006, I went to go see Toby Keith with a couple friends, and it was a great concert. And I mean, the place was packed. I've never seen what is it, the amphitheater, Casino Queen,
Oh,
whatever.
yes.
I used to be Riverport. I'll always call it Riverport.
Me too.
I've never seen that many people there on the lawn to where you could barely move without bumping into people. It was just so crowded. So love Toby Keith, and he's going to be sorely missed. So
did he put on a good show? Was it a great entertainer?
Tremendous show. And some people on stage, they come across very genuine, and some people come across, you can tell they're, well, I'm the star now. I'm on the stage, the Bob Seger song, here I am playing the star again. They're playing the star again. You can tell other people are just up there doing their thing, having fun, and that was him. So well, let me just begin where we should begin. Like us on Facebook. Contact us through one card, one cup, one beer at gmail.com. You can support us through Patreon. You just go to patreon.com and you search one Cardinal, one Cub, and one beer. And you can support us for as little as $3 a month or as much as $10 a month for those of you who are millionaires. So you can do that. There was no guest the Cubby last week, but I have a new guy right behind me. And I will give you a hint. It is not Andre Dawson.
Okay.
Not Andre Dawson. So, so if you have a guess, let me know through one of our many outlets. And the first one that gets the guess correctly will get the tally. And the person at the end of spring training with the most tallies will get a prize package that includes a lot of our merchandise and also 2 tickets to a game. To a game at Wrigley or a game at St. Louis or a game wherever, if you want to go wherever. But we will give you 2 tickets for winning the contest, but transportation and housing is up to you if you decide you're going to go watch a game in Seattle like it. So anyway, JJ, how are you doing?
Oh, man. I went to the big card show Sunday. Good times. I think everybody's getting baseball fever. It was packed. And go ahead.
Ken Obergefell.
Yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's right. Very good. Yeah, he was there. But I got a bunch of things happened. I was running late, and I'm going to give out Uncle JJ's giving out a little baseball advice for all you fans out there that collect stuff. Go to the card shows late. All these collectors, they've packed, they've built, they have a nice display, but they have to unpack everything and go back home. So they're ready to make deals at the end of the day, which is a good one. And I got some good stuff. I'll be showing y'all a little bit later, but it was pretty good. And although I didn't get any of the players' autographs because by the time I got there, they were already signing. The lines were long, but I bet you there was about 500 people there. It was a really big show. I seen some stuff I've never seen. And if you get a chance, go out to one of the shows. It's going to be a good time. There's one this Saturday at the Machinist Hall, and they have a show out there about every 3 months. So if you get a chance, go out there, do that. A lot of baseball news, Vince. I'm getting excited. I'm going to mention one right off the gate. Corbin Burnes has went to the Baltimore Orioles, which for all of us Central fans, I think the last 4 years, the Brewers have been the class of of our division. It's that pitching staff. And, well, now Corbin's gone to Baltimore, which is good for Baltimore. I'm glad they've had a big week. I'm sure you're going to get to that in a minute. new ownership. That's what we need to do is get I don't know, a bake sale, maybe a lemonade stand, and buy us a major league team. And in 20 years, we'll our profit will go up 10 times. I think that's what we need to do. All of us, one Cardinal, one Cub, one beer fan, our family here, we all get together and buy a team.
That's how George W. Bush made his big
It's-
money. He was part owner of the Rangers, and then they sold the Rangers, and for like 7, 8 times more than what he paid for. And yeah, so
Yeah.
by the way, imagine this being white.
Okay.
This is Milwaukee right now. Uh, yeah, they that's Milwaukee saying, screw it. We're not going to win. We've lost our manager. We've lost our ace. We got the other. Oh gosh, Woodruff, is
Woodruff.
that the one that's out? Yeah.
Yeah, he's out.
So
He's a free agent.
yeah, he's a free agent. He's out. Is Peralta injured?
He's coming off of injury. He's going to be
Coming off.
their he'll
yeah.
be the ace of their staff, who is a good pitcher, but I don't know how good he's going to be after being injured. Hauser was gone after last year, and he was one of the 1, 2, 3, 4 punch. 3 of those 4 guys are gone now. So unless they got some minor leaguers we don't know about, it's going to be kind of a rough year for Milwaukee.
Yeah. And I see that. I don't see an avenue to where they're going to win this division. I do see an avenue where they win the division if the Cubs stand pat and the Cardinals get some injuries, and the Reds, they're young, talented players, they all falter. But there's too many variables there. So I think Milwaukee is decided they're out of it. But the interesting thing is Baltimore, who was the best team in the American League, and what they lacked all year long was a frontline starter. And they didn't trade for one at the trade deadline. Came up and bit him in the butt when Texas just completely rolled over them in the playoffs. But now they have that frontline starter at the top of the rotation, an absolute stud who can shut a team down. So I think Baltimore has, I think they were the favorite to win the division, but I think now they've just kind of firmly cemented that, yeah, we are the best team in the division. And Milwaukee is waving the white flag. And I've seen some people complaining on social media, both Cardinal fans and Cub fans. Well, why didn't we get Corbin Burnes? Because Milwaukee really didn't want to trade him within the division. So that's why.
Vince, I got a question about that trade. I saw that the Orioles minor league system is so strong that they traded them a top-notch shortstop. They've already got the rookie of the year. They've got Jackson Holiday coming, and this other guy, and he's really good defensively and an okay hitter. Because I think their shortstop this year, it's his last year, and he may leave. But one of the pieces they got a bullpen player, but they got a draft choice. And I didn't think Major League Baseball traded draft choices. Do you know any more about that? It was like a compensatory draft. I didn't know if baseball did that.
Yeah, they do that every now and then.
Okay.
A lot of times that gets, not a lot of times, but it does get buried sometimes in the infamous player to be named later. Sometimes that just becomes a compensatory draft choice or something. But it's not like in football and basketball where that kind of stuff, kind of happens a lot. Speaking of Jackson Holiday, I did read over the transition wire today that he has officially been invited to the major league camp. And how is he 20? I mean,
when his dad when they lived in St. Louis, he went to Westminster School. And I heard stories about this kid when he was like 5 years old. They said he played with the eight-year-olds and he was better than the 8-year-olds. And so the kid he was on that team with, I believe he's 20 years old right now. So I'm going to say 20. That's
yeah,
amazing. He went right through the minor leagues.
He just but the he just turned 20 on December 4th. So he won't be 21 until the season's over. So it it looks like they're going to give him a shot. And what are they going to do? Send him down and just completely dominate AAA some
Right.
more? What else can you do?
I wonder where he's going to
Um,
play. They got Henderson at short, so I don't know. They got too much talent. That's a good problem to have.
they'll find somewhere for him out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he'll fit somewhere in there.
And with his bat, maybe outfield position or something. If you're good enough to be, um, a middle infielder, then usually you can transition to just about any other position on the diamond. So, but yeah, things are looking up for Baltimore, which is good because they're not in our division, and things are looking down for Milwaukee, which is really, it's like addition for our teams due
Yes,
to
it is.
subtraction. I was just as excited about this as if the Cubs would have picked up a I don't know, a third baseman or something. I was like, all right, this I don't have to worry about Milwaukee, and now watch them win this stupid division. But anyway,
Baseball's a crazy game. Kids come up and just light it on fire. Some people, you think you can't count on nothing. Only the superstars are steady every year. So people go up and down. It's crazy. So I don't know. I wish I went up to Baltimore, Milwaukee, and I really they got good fans. I like their stadium, and believe me, I know how it feels when Pujols left the Cardinals. I was
well,
like in a funk,
it also came out today that the Brewers are shopping Willie Adames.
Oh, he's
So
got one more year on his contract.
yeah, so they're shopping him.
He's a good player.
Um, he I think the year before in 22 he hit over 30 home runs. Last year he dipped a little into the low mid 20s. Not much of a batting average, but um, I'm not as high on him as you are. Um, so, but if they feel like they can get something for him, I guess next time we're on this podcast, we'll say, and Willie Adames has been traded to the Toledo Mud Hens for whatever.
There is a lot of talented shortstops. I don't. There was that time where Garcia was at the height of his career, and Tejada and Jeter and A-Rod. I mean, that there was that time period, but right now we've got some young superstar type players coming up in the shortstop position. So this is kind of a golden age of shortstops, I think, or it could be anyway. So
Yeah,
that could hurt him a little bit there.
when we were growing up, the shortstop was not expected to provide offense, was usually a smaller person. You had Larry Boa, you had Mark Belanger. These were all-star shortstops who couldn't hit a lick.
Right.
But shortstop was a defensive position. Um, and I remember Dickie Thon was a shortstop for the Astros. And one year he hit 20 home runs, and I thought, gosh, can you imagine having a shortstop that hit 20 home runs? I know Banks played short and he hit a lot of home runs, but that was aberration. Mostly this is what was expected. The Luis Aparicio types, Nellie Fox, little guys who couldn't hit much but could play great defense, steal
Oh yeah.
bags, and kind of be that spark plug.
That's
Um,
right.
and then it slowly in the 80s and 90s became you had mostly due to Cal Ripken Jr. being a 6'4", and he's
Big
a
guy.
shortstop. And so suddenly you started realizing that this is a position on the field that you need to have quick reflexes. It's better suited for great athletes. So that's why the shortstops has become such an offensive position, is because now these athletic guys who used to be, Cal Ripken in previous generations would have been a third baseman, a first baseman, or a corner outfielder. They put him at short, and he's a power guy. And then we had this whole generation of A-Rods and Garcia Paras and going into even today's
Jeter.
game. Yeah, Jeter, these guys who can actually hit home runs, and they're great athletes and probably the best athletes on the team. And I remember in uh, about the early 80s is when Robin Young kind of grew into being a power hitter because he started in the mid 70s as a teenager for Milwaukee, but he was a great athlete, but he wasn't a man yet. He still had his body still had to fill out. His body fills out, his power gets there. So suddenly he's a power hitting shortstop. By the time the early 80s start rolling, yeah, man, this guy's really good. MVP in 82. And he was such a great athlete, they put him in center field and he won a gold glove in center field.
Yeah,
Um,
he was special.
and yeah, just MVP of both positions. So it is that has evolved into your best athlete, the cornerstone of your team, which brings me to what I'm also excited about. Kansas City finally, finally steps up to the plate. They know that Bobby Witt Jr., their shortstop, is a five-tool generational type player. Um, he signed an 11-year extension worth 288.7 million. And there's a 3-year club option at the end of that could bring the value to 14 years for 377.7 million. Now there are opt-outs in years 7, 8, 9, and 10 that he can exercise. But basically what they have done is they have said to their fans, we are investing in a great player and we're going to keep him here. No more Carlos Beltran that we have to trade away because we're not going to be able to afford him. No more Jermaine Dye. Um, those teams that went to 2 World Series and won one in the mid-teens, they didn't really have that generational type talent. They were just a very solid team that played very well together. They haven't had a player like this since George Brett slash Bo Jackson.
You're right.
And now they have one and they've done the right thing. And Kansas City is a small town. It's not like St. Louis where there's this huge metropolitan area. It's big, but it's not like this. It's you live in Kansas City. I lived there for 3 years. You still feel like you live basically in a small town. You're driving through a subdivision, you take a left turn, and then you're at a cow pasture. I mean, that's how Kansas City is. And the fans there are very, very, very rabid. They remind me of when I went to Pittsburgh last year and talked to the Pittsburgh fans. Very knowledgeable, very much in love with their team, but their teams are so cheap in such a weak market, they have trouble holding on to their players. And I'm so happy that Kansas City has made an investment. This is going to bring people to the park. They are building a new downtown ballpark and they need a cornerstone and they've got it. This is a guy who hit 30 home runs, who's going to steal your bases. He's going to play stellar defense and he's got the makeup of a leader. And in the press conference today, he just came across as giddy. This is a guy who could have said, you know what, I'm going to play 5 years for the Royals. And then that last year, they're going to trade me for someone. And then I can go to the Dodgers and I can live the Hollywood lifestyle, or I can go to New York and be that East Coast player, or I can go to Chicago and be the big guy in the second city. But he said, nope, I'm going to stay here. And that makes me so happy because of someone who grew up liking the Royals and then living in Kansas City and seeing what those fans are like. Um, I'm so glad that they did this kind of investment. What do you think about it?
Well, each franchise, they have the faces of their team. When I think of Kansas City, I always think of George Brett. They've had some other great Kane, the outfielder or I'm sorry, Gordon, who stayed his whole career there, won some gold gloves,
Yeah,
and Frank White. I think of them, but George Brett's up here, and I think Witt was a first round draft choice, highly talented, came there, and when I've been to 2 games out in Kansas City and watched him play, and he is I'd say the captain of the team. Perez, the catcher, as well too. He's one of those guys like a Frank White. But on his end, like you said, he chose, I'm staying here. I like it here. And Kansas City, it's great for that franchise to have connect those generations, and we'll have him there for the next at least 10, 11 years, hopefully. And all these young fans will get to watch this guy play and fall in love with the game, and this will carry on that Royals tradition. So I'm so glad to see that as a baseball fan first, that you keep your talent. I always love when guys play their at least a majority of their career in the same stadium or the same city, and you just get that connection. You almost, when I think of a player like Willie Stargell, it just takes me back to the 70s and the Pirates, or Clemente in the 60s and the Pirates, just like that. Ernie Banks with the Cubbies. So it's good for baseball, it's good for Kansas City. And I tell you what, we ought to make a trip out there sometime in the next year or two, and watch the team play before they get rid of that stadium.
Yeah, there's so much. We could go to the Negro League Hall of Fame. I want to go there.
Place.
Like to go to a Royals game. I'd love to go get some barbecue. So
yeah, that's right.
I am up for it. But I with the news that Burnes got traded and Bobby Witt signed, I was as giddy as I've been wanting to get on to here and talk about this.
Yeah, me too.
George Brett, a California guy who was drafted and played his whole career in Kansas City, stayed in Kansas City, works for the team, has worked for the team since, and he's an icon in that city.
Oh yeah,
he owns the city, and well, he and Mahomes do now, but that's what Bobby Witt's going to be. Well, Paul Rudd kind of owns the city too, because Paul Rudd's from Kansas City. So
we'll give Paul Rudd a shout out there.
You know what me and Paul Rudd have in common?
What's that?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. So, oh, but shout out to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding you. Looking at what they've added this year, they are trying to win this division.
They very well could. That is up for grabs, just like ours. Just like our division.
They are making an effort to win the division. And although this doesn't add anybody, this sends a message to the fans and to the players. We are serious about building something here and holding on to it. And I think that's going to energize the team, the city, and I expect big things to come out of Kansas City. You can win that division with 85 wins. And I can see a scenario where any team can win it and any team can lose 100 games.
Oh yeah.
But I like Kansas City and I like Detroit in that division right now. The White Sox, they're going to suck no matter what. I mean, they're just
the Twins look like they took a step back too. The Twins, their top two pitchers are gone, and I don't know, maybe some magic's there and still.
Cleveland is financially hamstrung, so I think the Royals are going to be big players. Back in 2015, the year after they went to the first World Series and lost to the Giants, and during the season where they went to the World Series and won it against the Mets, the hated Mets. Sorry, my cousin Mark and all you other Met fans. We got a few of them to listen to the show. I was at a conference in Omaha, and at the hotel lobby, because that's Kansas City Royals fan, the lounge was just full of people watching the Royals game. Not just it's on the TV, they were watching it, they were cheering it. It was fantastic. So I know they've got a fan base, they've got a big wide fan base with all that farm country there. It's just scattered out a lot. But I think it's great for baseball. And in the face of what the Dodgers have done this year, I think this is like very positive. So do you want to get into other transactions, or
can I mention one more big thing that happened besides Burnes going to the Orioles have a new owner, and this is big. It's a big I can't remember the new owner's name, but there is a group that bought the team, and included in that group is Cal Ripken Jr. and Grant Hill. So and then like it's like they bought the team one day and the next day they traded and got Corbin Burnes. This is good for Baltimore. Baltimore's a good baseball area. It's got a good history. And I always just kind of felt like they were falling behind the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. And of course, Tampa Bay somehow works their voodoo magic and is always in there. But this is a big day for Baltimore, too. So, besides those two other notes, this was a great moment because I like anybody that can get in there and, and with the young players they have, we could be seeing a great 5-year run for the Orioles, at least 5 years here. So, hold on tight. This is going to get fun.
Yeah, I think it's good to have former players in the ownership group. And I know Grant Hill was a basketball player, but he thinks like an athlete. Cal
Like
Ripken Jr. not only thinks like an athlete, he is a god in Baltimore. He
sure is.
is uh, one of those franchise players that they've had that is forever going to be on a pedestal. I'm sure when they were talking with their ownership group, get ready to buy the team, said, "Oh, we have to be aggressive. We have to spend some money." One thing that's hurt Baltimore is when Washington moved when the Expos moved to Washington, a lot of the fan base for Baltimore was in the Washington area and Virginia, and now that's kind of Nationals territory. So they have had issues with their fan base being shrinking down. But um, yeah, it's a great day for Baltimore. It's a great week for Baltimore.
It's great. Great week for baseball.
It is. Let's get into some of the transactions. And like I've said, I don't go through all of them, just things that have name recognition and major leaguers involved. The Angels, they traded third baseman Trey Cabbage to Houston for right-handed pitcher Carlos Espinoza. So, um, Angels, like I said last week, they're an interesting team. I don't know if that's good or bad, but they've done some stuff. So,
Yeah, we'll see.
uh, the Diamondbacks signed left-handed pitcher Brandon Hughes to a minor league contract. And they also invited Tucker Barnhart to spring training. Do you know what those two players have in common?
No.
Last year, they both played for the Cubs, and they played terribly for the
Oh,
Cubs.
I knew Tucker Barnhart did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brandon Hughes had a bad year, and the Diamondbacks apparently see something in him, and maybe a change of scenery will do him good. Tucker Barnhart, I just think is finished. They invited him to spring training, and he's probably going to enjoy a few of the nice meals that they have at the minor league spread. But I don't. Time for him to start looking into coaching. This is interesting. The A's signed left-handed pitcher Alex Wood, former Dodger. And then they traded outfielder Johan Cox to San Francisco for right-handed pitcher Ross Stripling, who is also a former Dodger. So the A's, even though we have no idea where exactly they're going to play, there's even talk that after this season they're going to fold it for a few years while they build a stadium. Nobody knows what's going on with the A's. They don't even know. The deal with Vegas apparently isn't even done yet. Now Salt Lake City's trying to lure them
Move
over.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah. But at least they're going to have a couple of pitchers who pitch for the Dodgers this year. Stripling had a terrible year last year for San Francisco. Alex Wood certainly has had his issues with injuries, but maybe they'll reunite with the A's and say, "Come on, boys, we're all going to the World Series. All and our 28 fans, we're going to go to the World Series this year." So the Pale Hose are busy. The White Sox trade right-handed pitcher Gregory Santos, who had a heck of a year last year, to Seattle for right-handed pitcher Prelander Maroa and outfielder Zach DeLoach. I don't know why they traded Santos, a good piece of their bullpen, one of the few bright spots they have, but apparently they see something in these two prospects that they got from Seattle. We all know Seattle, they're pushing to make a playoff run, and so getting Santos is going to be a major upgrade to their bullpen. They also traded right-handed pitcher Christian Mena to the Diamondbacks for center fielder Dominic Fletcher. So No one knows what's going on with the White Sox. They don't have very many good players, and they seem to be trading their good players. So whatever.
It wasn't like 3 years ago that they were favored to win that division. It was like 3 years ago
they were in the
that
playoffs a few years ago. Yeah,
one of the top American League teams, and now, it's just the floor has been pulled out from underneath them.
I I don't mean to sound like I'm crapping on Tony La Russa, but they were improving, and they had Ricky Renteria as their manager, and I love Ricky Renteria. I loved him with Chicago, but when uh Joe Madden was available, and
Yeah, we got
sorry,
to go
Ricky,
there.
we
Yeah,
got Joe.
we got Joe
And then
Madden.
he goes to the White Sox, and they've got all this talent that's pushing forward. He's leading them in the right direction. They say, sorry, we got La Russa coming back. I got Joe Madden. He was in his late 50s. La Russa was pushing 140 years old. And when La Russa went there, there was obvious, I mean, napping in the dugout, forgetting things. And we all get there in old age. And,
Not yet. Not yet.
I guess Reinsdorf, who's even older than La Russa, I guess, but they went to the playoffs on just talent, and then it just all completely fell apart, and they're having trouble putting it back together. So,
Casey Stengel was like that too. He went over to the Mets after he went to the Yankees, and it was just he was
he
like
didn't even know the name of the players.
He was a shell of the guy he used to be, and I think that same way with I love Tony, and he was a great manager here, but after that time out of the game and aging, and he was just a different guy, and it didn't work for whatever reason. It didn't work.
Yeah. I found this move very interesting. The Blue Jays invite Zach Britton to spring training.
Okay.
Britton, who's once a dominant closer for the Orioles, pitched for the Yankees. He's had his trouble with injuries, so he's kind of on the scrap heap. Jays are taking a chance on him. Last year, we were talking about free agents, before the season 23 season. Max was thinking Zach Britton would be a good fit for the Cubs. So just like a year ago, he was still pretty highly thought of, but with all the injuries and everything, at least he's getting another shot at it. And speaking of pitchers who've had some success but have also dealt with injury, the Rangers have invited left-handed pitcher Danny Duffy to spring training. Duffy, who pitched for the Royals and had some really solid years, trying to rekindle that. And this is kind of weird to me. The Dodgers, they trade two left-handed pitchers to the Yankees. They trade Caleb Ferguson to the Yankees. They trade Caleb Ferguson to the Yankees for Matt Gage and righty Christian, somebody, basically two minor leaguers. But Caleb Ferguson was pretty decent. And the Dodgers are weird, bringing the big money people, and you can't neglect the little pieces that help your team. And I thought Caleb Ferguson, you have a left-hander, you start an inning, you got
hang on to him.
A left-hander, two left-handers coming up. The next three batters, you throw a left-hander out there. But well, I'm not the Dodgers, that's why the Dodgers win all these World Series. Oh, wait a minute, they don't. And last week I was on here, and me and you were salivating. Hey, Clayton Kershaw, come to the Midwest. Well, he signed with the Dodgers, so whatever.
I'm glad to see him stay there whole career. But if he was going to leave, it would have been nice to have him on one of our teams.
Jose Altuve signed a 5-year deal with the Astros, $125 million, and that will take him to age 39. So it looks like he's probably going to finish out his career in Houston, which he should.
I agree.
I think he's forever going to be a little tainted with the trash can incident, but he's proved he can hit without a trash can. And the jury's out on how many of those players really took advantage of it. So who knows? But a guy who has been the face of the franchise. I think it's good that he's going to have an avenue to finish out his career in Houston. And they've had some players that Houston has had some players that they've hung on to.
Berkman.
Biggio. Yeah, but Berkman finished out his career.
Well, that's true. He was there for most of his career. Bagwell.
Yeah, I'm talking about players who've been there the whole time.
Oh.
Bagwell, Biggio. Shoot, am I leaving anyone out?
J.R. Richard, did he stay there the whole time? He had a shorter career.
Yeah, a shorter career.
But that for a moment he was so dominant. Yeah. And then Altuve, and there was a guy left from that first time they really started building up that team. Bergman. Alex Bergman is still there as well. Or last I heard, he was still there.
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah.
They did a good job of building this team, sort of like you guys did, the Cubs did. You had all these young players come up, and they held on to a couple and moved a couple, Springer and Correa, and just kept it going. You know, they had Greinke there for a while, and Verlander was there, left and came back, and they've done I applaud them on the job they've done over these years. It's hard to keep that bus going, and they've done a good job of it. They're always competitive.
Yeah, I'm glad they're not in the Central anymore. The National League Central.
I'm to get them out of here.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, anything going on in Cardinal news?
Yeah,
you've had a lot of action this week too.
Yeah, we've had a lot of action. We signed a reliever. There's another reliever. Our bullpen is going to look totally different, except for the last two at the back end. We have guys that we were going to use a lot of like young starters and perhaps put them in the bullpen, but I don't think we have to now. We went out and got some guys. Let's see what happens. I mean, we've got other guys in Memphis that can do the job, but we don't have it seems like it hurts a pitcher if he's a starter for a while and then they send him into the bullpen and he has to emergency relief. It's like, I think a player does better when he knows his role on the team. So we got a guy named Kenya Middleton. He was with the White Sox last year, and he had a good year, but he got traded to the Yankees and had a much better year. The White Sox seems like they were just in disarray. So he goes to the Yankees, had a good year last year. A 3.38 ERA. He pitched in 51 games. He got 2 saves, although he's not a closer by trade. He's I'd say like a 7th inning guy. A lot of strikeouts, 50 innings and struck out 64 guys. So he's a strikeout pitcher. We're excited about it. He looks like he's a nice quality piece to the bullpen. And as we know, since starters don't go as far, hopefully these new guys go a little further and it's not so taxing on our bullpen, but our bullpen looks like it's going to be in shape. I still think you guys have the better bullpen, but we're going to be competitive. It's looking much better than it did last year. We also, last week we talked about Moises Gomez being just released by the Cardinals. Well, he went through waivers and nobody picked him up. He's back with the Cardinals in Memphis. So we got that power bat. He's still, kind of just getting into his prime years. Hopefully, sometimes with foreign players, you don't really know their actual age. So I think his age right now, I think he's like a 26, 27, 28-year-old guy, hopefully. And he'll go down to Memphis, and he might be up with the team sometime. Did you have something to say on that?
Well, I was going to say he was on the 40-man roster when they waived him. He's not on the 40-man roster anymore, is he?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
We like him, and he just strikes out too much, and he really doesn't play a position. He's a DH by trade, and we've got a lot of those guys. So maybe he can go down there and, work his butt off, and, who knows? Injuries happen. Every team goes through injuries. Yeah, so he might be up this year, but it's good to have him back. And the big talk I'm going to give a little shout out to my friend Troy Lou. He's the minor league guru of my friends. He just studies the Cardinal minor leagues. And he said when Dylan Carlson came up and Tommy Edman, he's a big Donovan fan. We always have this running argument of Donovan versus Edman. And we can like them both, but for some reason he's all Donovan and I'm all Edman. But he said, look at their splits, JJ. Carlson and Edman are trying to be switch hitters. If they just hit right-handed, they'd be terrific. And they're killing the team being switch hitters. And he said this 3 years ago. And as I listen to sports radio over the next year and the following year, you hear more and more people saying that. And this year, there's rumors that they're going to abandon the switch hitting and just go and bat right-handed. They're much, much better at right-handed. And Dylan Carlson, this is a big pivotal year for him. He's a fan. He's our best defensive center fielder, but he just doesn't hit well enough. And one side of the plate, it's drastically different. So I hope he does stick to right-handed, and let's see what happens. There's been two players in the past that I remember that were tried to be switch hitters, and then they decided, nope, I'm just going to bat from one side of the plate. And one was Cedric Mullins. And Mullins, the year he decided to just bat one side of the plate, he was a 30-30 man. I'm not saying that for Dylan Carlson, but his career just kind of took off. And the other was JT Snow from the Giants, who was a first baseman, a very good defensive player, but a light hitting first baseman. And he ended up hitting 274 the year he just decided to hit from one side of the plate. So I think this is a good idea. Let's see what happens. And it's hard to be a switch hitter. I can't even imagine. Vince, I'm a poor right-handed hitter, but left-handed, I couldn't hit the side of a barn if I had to. So it's very hard. Not many people can do it in the big leagues, especially.
Yeah,
So
switch hitting is something that you almost have to start doing as a kid.
yeah.
And that doesn't happen so much because you have a dominant side and then you start playing baseball, and being you're not seeing breaking balls, it doesn't matter if it's a lefty or a righty, you're hitting from your dominant side, and there's no reason for kids to start switch hitting. When I was in Little League, we played against a team that the dad was a coach and his son was on the team, and he made his son switch hit. It's a big kid and he could hit from both sides of the plate, but at the time, we're about 11, 12 years old. I thought, well, why is he switch hitting? He's naturally a right-hander and he can just kill the ball, whenever he wants right-handed. But as an adult, I see where his dad was coming from. If you think your kid has baseball talent, try to see if they can hit from the other side of the plate. I found this. Me and my buddies growing up, we used to play a game on the asphalt at our local grade school because it had a fenced-in area and there was a natural home run area, and it would be one-on-one. We would fast pitch, and it would be with a tennis ball, and then you would have a bat. Okay, and that's probably why none of us wound up being pitchers, because we threw our arms out because we just go out there and pitch for 8 hours a day, playing this stupid game. But anyway, we made a rule that for every 9 times you batted, you had to have 3 left-handed batters, or 3 batters from the your non-dominant side.
I like that.
So I learned how to switch hit doing that. It had nothing to do with Little League or anything like that. And I when I was in college, me and my buddy, we'd go to the batting cages. I didn't play college ball. We'd go to the batting cages, and I could still hit pretty good from both sides of the plate. We could get we got it up to where the pitching machine, we'd get it up to throwing 90 miles an hour, and I could still make decent contact from both sides of the plate. Then I started playing slow pitch softball as I got older. I can't hit from my non-dominant side a slow pitch. I mean, I'm lucky to foul it because it took me so much concentration batting as a left-hander to get a level swing to hit a fastball. And then when I tried it playing slow pitch softball with that arc coming up, I couldn't do it. So I just always played softball strictly from the right side. But I remember Larry Boa played for the Cubs, and he was a switch hitter, but he could not hit the ball left-handed. It was almost like a push butt when he would swing. And even Harry Carey back then would say, wow, Boa should just bat from the right side. He's hitting 217. That's right-handed 235, but left-handed he only hits 180 and just kind of pushes at the ball. I don't know how he's played this long as a switch hitter. So,
that was good.
But yeah, I'm switch hitters with power. That's the rare things. Think of Ted Simmons and Reggie Smith and Mickey Mantle. Players like that. Yeah, who could hit from power from both sides. Those are rare.
Very rare. Yeah, I applaud those guys trying to be switch hitters, but I think I'm excited about this because Dylan Carlson was so good in the minors, and he's come up here and just been, like a 228 hitter, right 240 right in there. And I think he's got so much talent. And every once in a while, you see a little glimpse of it. He'll get on a hot streak or something like that. But defensively, I love watching this kid play. And if he could be our center fielder and have Lars out there and Mr. Walker, it could be exciting outfield out there. So let's see what happens. Spring training's coming. He's going to get a lot of chances to work on it this spring, and let's see what happens. So I'm a big fan of his, and I hope he makes the team. Vince, another thing happened this week. As a matter of fact, I think it happened yesterday. They displayed the new spring training hats. Each team, some of them go with the more traditional hat that they wear during the year. They have the spring training hats. The Cardinals have an all red hat and a red bill with the Cardinal bird on the bat, sort of like the logo was on the wall back in Old Busch Stadium. Real nice. I like it. Have you seen the Cubs hat that's out for spring training?
I don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff.
I do. I cause
You're a collector, so you pay attention to that. And I'm not much of a collector.
It's nice. I wouldn't mind having it if my Cardinal fans wouldn't throw eggs at me or anything, but I like it. It's like a Detroit line blue up here with the dark blue bill and the Cubby bear walking. It looks pretty bad. It's pretty cool. Minnesota Twins have two flags with the Minneapolis and St. Paul, like an M on one flag and an S on the other. I don't care for that one too much. The Tigers have that tiger face on the front. That's pretty cool. So if you get a chance, spring training, they're going to have a lot of new. That's going to be a little new thing they do this year. And Vince, since you mentioned this guy earlier, I love old pictures. And one of the pictures I got at the show, this is just like a copy of a picture, but I like this. It's the old KMOX broadcasting team. And this was somewhere, I'm saying, in the maybe late 50s. But look at that. You got Harry Carey right in the middle. You got the Cardinal bird on the bat there, and you got Jack Buck and Joe Garagiola. How about that? All those guys did the game together. Now, that's a top-notch announcing team right there for the Cardinals back in the day at KMOX. How about that? Pretty
Wow.
cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool, And the Cardinals and Cubs have so much history. So many players have played with the Cubs and they come over to the Cardinals and vice versa. There's just a long history there, even announcers and things like that. So that's pretty cool. And everybody loves Harry Carey. One of a kind. Got a picture. I'm doing a big display of Enos Slaughter, my favorite player. And I got a young rookie picture of him. And there's Enos in the 30s right there. That's Enos Slaughter in the 1930s with a commemorative card right there. And there's one collector that just deals with pictures, and I just love going through there and looking. And hate to bring this up, but I got this from him. And Ozzie Smith is with his, I won't mention the guy's name, with his double play duo guy, and it's signed by both guys. And there's Ozzie and a Montreal Expo, and this other guy who I'm not supposed to say his name on this podcast.
That's we'll just call that the guy that my wife fantasizes about.
Yeah, there he is. There they are. When we do our list, sometimes we ought to do our top 5 double play duos. That would be a good one because there's been a lot of great ones. And I know through the Cardinal history, we've had some top-notch ones, but in my lifetime, it's these two guys in the 1980s, and that's Whitey Ball. And as you can tell, there's the Old Busch Stadium emblem on the home run wall back there.
Yeah.
And it's Old Busch Stadium, Yeah, I look at pictures because you can see like Wrigley Field. You always see, even in the old baseball cards, you can see the ivy in the background. Oh, that's great. I'm a big fan of 1975 cards, and I bought a whole stack of them. And I know we show cards later in this, but I got a bunch of 75s, but there's 2 cards in particular I wanted to show you out of here because I think of you. And there's a Cub, Bert Hooton, 1975, revving up the ball.
Yeah.
Man, Bert Hooton. I think of him as a Dodger, but I did remember he played for the Cubs. And Vince, this one particularly for you, 1975. He's not with the Cubs here. King Kong, Dave Kingman, right there. Dave Kingman. That guy could hit it out of anywhere. So anyway, some of the things I got.
I heard I guess it was Buck tell the story that Bert Hooton, when he started off, he came up with the Cubs and pitched a few seasons, pitched a no-hitter for the Cubs.
Oh, I did not know that.
And Bert Hooton he was kind of the innovator of the knuckle curve, which now everybody call it a spike curve, but Bert called it a knuckle curve because instead of just having your fingers on the seam, you have one finger that's kind of up, so you can dig into the seam a little more and get more break on it. But anyway, Lou Brock went up to hit against Bert Hooton. Nobody knew who Bert Hooton was, and Lou Brock's this legend. And Brock gets 2 strikes on him, and he's standing there, and there's a pitch about at his eyes, and Brock does not move the bat, and it just dropped to his knees for a strike. And Brock walked back with unbelief in his eyes, just staring at Bert Hooton like, what in the hell did you just throw me? I've never seen that pitch before. So I'll tell you who had a great knuckle curve, pitched for the Cubs a little bit, retired now, Wade Davis. When he started pitching, oh gosh, man, that thing was unhittable. When he was with the Royals and he was their 8th inning guy.
Yeah.
Get it, you know.
Did he have that pitch with the Royals, or did he develop it?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So
I'll be darned. Well, can I show a couple of other things? Enos Slaughter, I got, I've always wanted these. There was a set of these postcards that came out with the Hall of Famers plaques. And this one's actually signed by Enos Slaughter, and it's got the copy of his plaque because I'm putting this big display together. So I got that. I'm very proud of that. It just talks about how hard he hustled and played with intensity and all that kind of stuff. That's why I like him. He's everything I'd want to be in a baseball player. And then this is a little tip for people who get autographs. I got an autograph ball of Enos Slaughter, but here's the problem. A lot of times when people get their ball signed, you want to get it right here. That's where all the collectors, you want the autograph right here. And he signed it kind of in a poor spot. I got a deal on it because it's kind of in an awkward position, but I always wanted an Enos Slaughter ball, so now I got one. So I've got about 14 pieces signed by Enos now, and I'm putting together this big. I have all his cards he ever had in there and all that. It's gonna look pretty cool when I'm done. It's gonna take a while though, but man, everybody knows I collect Enos Slaughter from watching this and seeing me at the card shows. So every time they see me, they go, "Come here, I got something for you," and I go over there, and man, I don't know. I got a problem, that's for sure. So anyway, Vince, that's my Cardinal news and some of the hobby news right over there.
Well, there's not much going on this week with the Cubs. I still expect us to sign Bellinger because it appears the Giants are looking at they're looking at someone else.
So Solar,
yeah,
isn't it?
Jorge Soler, yeah. So if they get him, because the Giants desperately need power, if they get Soler, they'll probably just pay him and save some money. And Bellinger's still out there with his lonely self, waiting for the
Cubs
boss to tell him what to do. So anyway, the Cubs did have a signing. They signed left-handed pitcher Richard Lovelady from the Oakland A's. They just signed him to a minor league contract, but he is left-handed. And I saw him pitch last year. I was watching a Oakland game against the Cubs because they played Oakland early in the year, and that guy comes in and says, "Is that his real last name, Lovelady?" Yeah. So ironically, he may be a Cub if he makes the roster. I'm sure he'll at least be pitching AAA, so because he does have major league experience. And he actually, when me and Max went to Pittsburgh, he actually got into the game against the Pirates when the A's played the Pirates in Pittsburgh. So we did do that. We also signed a right-handed pitcher, Sam McWilliams, minor league contract. So we're like every other team. We're just throwing a bunch of arms together and seeing what will stick around, not just on the major league roster, who we could fill up the minor league bullpen with. That could be a call up to, fill a slot, because there are going to be injuries, because injuries happen. But who never gets injured?
Never. Jeremy Connor.
Jeremy Connor never gets injured. Not a pulled hamstring, not a sty in his eye.
He's the Iron Horse.
Yes, he's the Iron Horse. Comes a time in every man's life when he needs some advice on relationships. You need to listen to the podcast DMDR, which stands for Dating, Marriage, Divorce, Remarriage, from my good friend Jeremy Connor, the Dr. Phil of the Boot Hill. You can find DMDR on Spotify or whatever platform you choose to listen to your podcast. All right, so we've been just looking at Jeremy Connor, and JJ, what was your last comment? That he's hung like a horse? I don't know. What the heck are you talking?
Hey, I saw something written in the bathroom wall one time.
Oh, we are going to do our top 5 first basemen that we have seen in our lifetime. You know what I found out? There's a lot of freaking good third basemen in the last 50 years. First baseman in the last
first
50
baseman.
years.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I had 25 and I had to narrow it down. And I'm telling you what, Vince, that list kept flipping over and over. You know, it was tough.
Well, I'll tell you what I did. There are some players that played predominantly other positions. So, and they finish their career at first base or something like Pete Rose. You know, he played left field, right field, second base, third base, and then finished his career at first base. So I didn't include him as a first baseman in the 70s or the 80s or anything, because he played other positions. So he's probably going to show up on a different list at a different position. So I kind of look for players who played predominantly first base, or if they de-aged, they played a good chunk, at least 40% of their games at first base.
I'm with you.
And I will go ahead and say up front, I disqualified McGuire and Palmeiro, not just because of the steroids, but because pre-steroids, what were they looking like? And maybe I'll do it one day. I have an argument that I've written down before. McGuire, he was trending downwards before his body changed. Then people say, "Oh, steroids don't make you a better hitter." That's bullcrap, because McGuire was down to like a 210 hitter before suddenly he bulked up and started hitting a bunch of home runs. Palmeiro, I saw him early in his career with the Cubs. He's a left-hander, and his best swing was a line drive into left center field. He was a doubles hitter, and suddenly he hits 500 home runs with 3,000 hits, but he did not use steroids. Whoops, sorry, kind of lied there. So I did disqualify them just because, well, it was easy. I got to get rid of some of these people, so I did disqualify them, but I've come up with, I'm gonna give you my top 5, and then before I do my number 1, I'm going to give the 5 honorable mentions. But yeah, I man, I look at some of these players. It's like, my gosh, great third or first baseman, Bill Buckner. Couldn't even put him on there. Bill Buckner was great.
He was great. Yes.
And then there were some defensive specialists at first base, and I know that sounds weird, but the Cardinals had one for a while. Mike Jorgensen, who played for the Mets, also played a little bit for the Cardinals. He was a defensive specialist at first base, a late inning replacement. You would put in at first base, Gold Glove caliber. The White Sox had a similar first baseman, Mike Squires, who could catch anything with probably his teeth. So I look at these guys who had no offense, but man, you don't think of first base as a defensive position, but there used to be some guys who could really play it. And we'll get into one of those, getting our stuff. So why don't you start with your number 5, and we'll just count them down here.
Vince, I kind of looked at it this way. I got it down to 25. And man, I was looking at every aspect, first of all, longevity, key, sometime of the stats where you get into the special levels, like 500 home runs, 3,000 hits, things like that, accomplishments, awards, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, with all that being said, and I have favoritism. There's certain players I just like better than other players, and that has a little bit to do with it too. But my number 5 And I'm going to just say the name, the Big Hurt. My number 5 was Frank Thomas. And kids, he did play baseball before he started doing those sexy commercials for men products. Uh, Played predominantly with the Chicago White Sox, but he also did play with Toronto and Oakland. Played from 1990 to 2008. And a fantastic. He was drafted in the first round. He was the 7th pick, and this guy was just a mammoth of a man. He looked like an NFL player playing in a baseball uniform. 2-time MVP, 5-time All-Star. He won the home run derby one year. 4-time Silver Slugger, and he won a batting title. And some of the things, WAR is a statistic about how much you're better than the people if you were replaced by somebody. Not quite sure how they come up with it, but 60 seems to be the level of like a Hall of Famer. And he ended with a 73.6 WAR, 2,468 hits. Like I said, oh shoot, I can't read my writing. He played a lot of years though, from what would that be? 18 years. 521 home runs. Now that's rarefied air right there. Wasn't much with speed though, only 32 stolen bases. But one thing that really amazed me about Frank Thomas, he was a tough out. He played on some good teams too, but he had 1,667 walks in his career, but only 1,397 strikeouts. So he walked over his career more than he struck out. That's pretty amazing. OPS plus of 156, which is outstanding. Now, this is the one thing, Vince. He was a DH for 1,308 games, but he did play first base 971. And I always thought of Frank Thomas as a first baseman. I got a card of him here, around in the bag right there. And he's just a big man. I don't know his actual size and weight or anything like that, but an outstanding player, one of the all-time great Chicago White Sox players. And anyway, my number 5 was the Big Hurt, Frank Thomas.
Well, I've got Thomas at number 2, so I think a little more highly of him than you. 974 OPS, which is tops amongst the first baseman I have on my list. And that's one of the things about Thomas. I think he's tight end at Auburn. I think he played college football.
I can see that.
Yeah. But there was a time from the early to the mid 90s, going into the late 90s, where he was just everything.
Oh yeah.
He was the poster child for what a first baseman should be, and never was great defensively, but his offense was so stellar. And like today, they would train him to do launch angle, and he would hit probably about 260. Probably would hit like 700 home runs. But he was a big contact hitter. And
301 batting average lifetime, which is
yeah,
outstanding and agile for a man that size. Very agile.
yeah, he's good in the booth too. He does
Does he?
do game support.
Like Fox or something like that.
Yeah,
with
Fox or
A
something like
Rod
that.
and
He's on one
Ortiz.
of the national ones.
Yeah.
So. My number 5 is Eddie Murray. Played for the primarily Baltimore. Played for the Dodgers. I think the Mets were in there. Toledo Mud Hens, possibly. He had a 68.6 WAR, 287 lifetime average, 3,255 hits, 504 home runs. So you got the 3,000 hits, the 500 home run club. 1,917 RBIs, 836 OPS, 8 All-Star games, 3 Gold Gloves, Hall of Famer, Eddie Murray. Eddie Murray, do you know how he learned how to hit?
No, I do not.
He and his brothers, they would get a broomstick and they would throw like the lids of like Crisco cans, those plastic things, and they would whiz them in there and they would try to hit the lids. And that's how he learned how to steady his swing and make solid contact. I always thought that was an interesting thing. Uh, they called him Steady Eddie because he was always great. Um, didn't have like these monster years. He was just consistently very, very good to great. And he played for two World Series teams, won the World Series. Um, and there was one more thing I was going to say about Eddie Murray. Oh yeah, switch hitter. Great switch hitter with power. We were just talking about switch hitters, and that kind of crossed my mind. I forgot that he was a switch hitter. Um, and he wasn't really liked by the press. Not that he was so much of a jerk. He was just kind of quiet. And you know, retirement. I've seen him interviewed a few times. Seems like a perfectly great guy. But Eddie Murray's my number 5.
Now, I have Eddie Murray in my list. Should I talk about him or wait until I get to
Yeah,
where
go
he
ahead. I
comes?
talked about Frank Thomas.
All
So.
right. Well, okay. And you know, this is what's great about the list. We all have our where we would put a guy and everything. I put Eddie Murray number 2. And
Ah,
I'll tell you why. And so we flip-flop Thomas and Murray. Uh, well, the thing is, Frank Thomas played 2,413 games at first base. He played the lion's share of his career at first base. He only DH 563, only 563 games. So he was like almost 5 times more games at first base than he did at DH. And he played 6 games at third and 3 in left field. So he did play some other positions. Only 6 games at third base, though. The thing that got me, though, was a 3-time Gold Glover. And he, you know, I love Frank Thomas. These are apples and oranges kind of things. But at one time, Eddie Murray was considered the best defensive player for 3 different years in the American League. Um, Another thing, he had the most RBIs in all of major leagues in the 1980s with 996. So for those 10 years, he was the most reliable guy driving in runs. Bronze statue outside Camden Yards. And Bill James has a book where he has all these statistics, and he puts him down as the 5th best uh, hitting first baseman that ever existed. So that's high praise right there. I like him. He got 3,255. He played 2 more years than Frank. It seems like I'm comparing the two. I shouldn't do that. But he had 3,255 hits, 504 home runs, hit 287, did steal 110 bases. I've never seen Eddie Murray steal one base. But looking through his stats, he did steal some bases. And his WAR was 68.6, which Frank Thomas had a higher WAR, but it's pretty close. Anyway, here's the teams he played for: Baltimore, the Dodgers, the Mets, Cleveland, and the California Angels. So he got around the league a little bit, where Frank mainly played with the White Sox. So my number 2 was Eddie Murray. I just kind of wanted to add that in there. So should I do number 4 now?
go for number 4.
Number 4. Now, this is some controversy here, and I looked over these numbers, and people flip-flopped all the time. My number 4 is Miguel Cabrera.
That's
Miggy.
my number 4.
Hey, all right, we're on the same page
Hey.
here. Hey, I just talked. You want to talk about Miguel, and I'll come in there at the end and add a little.
67.3 WAR, 306 career batting average. Just retired this year. Another member of the 3,000 hit, 500 home runs. 3,174 hits, 511 home runs. 1,881 RBIs, 901 OPS, 12 All-Star appearances, 2 MVPs, won a Triple Crown. What more can you say?
What more can you say? As a young player, I think his rookie year, he won the World Series.
And friendly guy.
Yeah, oh, the kids loved him, and yeah, he just loved to play. He made you proud to be a baseball fan. You know, what a guy! 21 years in the big leagues, and from Venezuela. In Venezuela, he's like a national treasure over there in Venezuela. And like you said, 6.67.3 WAR, 3,000 hits. He came up as a third baseman. His first few years, he was a third baseman, played 697 games at third, but eventually moved his way over to first base and played 1,196 games at first base. That's why I consider him a first baseman. He DH'd 548. Played half his career with the Florida Marlins, and played like the first third with Florida, and then he ended up being over in Detroit, and first ballot Hall of Famer right there. Played left field 248 games and right field 100 games, but predominantly a first baseman. Man, one of the best hitters I've ever seen. I mean, what else can you say? OPS plus 140. That's fantastic. And like you said, a credit to the game. It's good to have people like that in baseball. So our number 4 is Miguel Cabrera.
Right. Who do you got for number 3?
All right. Let me see here. All right. Number 3 might be a little controversial. Oh, by the way, where's my Cabrera card? There's my Miggy card right there. He's swinging a bat. All right. My number 3, and this is going to be controversial. I don't think he's on a lot of people's top 5, but in my lifetime, this is one of my all-time favorite players, and I think he's one of the greatest first basemen, and not for the reason a lot of these other guys are. And here's his card right here, Mr. Rodney Cline Carew. I love Rod Carew, and this is like point counterpoint. I'm going to make my case for why Rod Carew is the 3rd greatest first baseman that ever existed. He played from 1967 to 1985, 19 years in the big leagues. He's from Panama. He won an MVP, Rookie of the Year. In those 19 years, he was an 18-time All-Star. That's incredible. 18-time All-Star. 7 batting titles. That's just amazing. 81.2 WAR. That's way up past most of these guys. Hits, you want to talk hits, 3,053 hits. Batting average, a 328 lifetime batting average. He hit, well, I'll get to that in a minute. His walks to strikeouts, he only struck out 10 more times than he walked. He walked 1,018 and he struck out 1,028. OPS of 131 plus. Now, he doesn't have the power numbers that the other guys do. Rod only hit 92 home runs, but this is what he does have. He has 353 stolen bases from a first baseman. Rod Carew 1 year stole home 10 times. Only Ty Cobb has done more than that, and he's 2nd all time in stolen bases of home with let's see. Cobb, okay, stole home 17 times. Cobb stole home 54. Hit 315 straight years. And in 1972, he won the batting title, and he did not hit a home run. And I just think there's a place for guys that make contact, and get out there. And I tell you what, I take Rod Carew on my team anytime. And little quick story about Rod Carew. He was born on a train. His mom went into labor. There was a doctor on the train, and the guy's name was Rodney Cline, and his name is Rod Cline Carew. They named him after the doctor that delivered him on the train. Thought I'd throw that out there. You don't get that on any podcast except right here, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, Rod Carew, my 3rd best first baseman of my lifetime.
Okay, I've got Rod Carew as an honorable mention because he spent about half his time at second base.
Yeah.
So his WAR is 81.2, but a lot of that WAR is in comparison to the second baseman, which is not a great offensive position. So he built a lot of that WAR playing second base.
That's true.
When compared to the first baseman that he played against or his contemporaries, it's not that impressive. The batting average is impressive. The hit total is impressive, but the reason I don't have him in my top 5 is I think my first baseman should be
Popper.
the thumb, and he just wasn't. He did have that year in, was it 77? He hit 388.
Oh, he was on Time Magazine that year because he was so close to 400.
And won the MVP that year. Drove in like 100 runs with not a whole lot of home runs. But I remember about Carew, and you don't see too many players doing this. He had he he had a two-strike batting
Stance.
stance. He with two strikes, he altered his batting stance to where he was going to make contact with the ball, and it worked out well for him. Uh, Probably one of the best bunters I've ever seen too. Nolan Ryan once said he could probably bunt 400, and he was a great bunter. He was kind of the Ty Cobb of our generation as a kid. Someone with such perfect bat control could hit the ball and put it almost wherever he wanted to on the field, or bunt the ball wherever he wanted to on the field. So yeah, he's in my honorable mention, but didn't quite make my top five. My number three is Jeff Bagwell from the Houston Astros. This is impressive. He didn't play anywhere but first base. I think he may have played the other corner once or twice. But playing first base against an era with a lot of strong first basemen, he had a 79.9 WAR, which is really good. 297 batting average, and he hit 449 home runs, drove in 1,529 runs, a 948 OPS, which is better than Cabrera, which is better than Pujols, which is better than Eddie Murray. Almost that's 112 points better than Eddie Murray. Frank Thomas, his OPS is 974. And a lot of those years were DHs we've already covered, but Bagwell was strictly a first baseman. He did make 4 All-Star teams, probably could have made a lot more, but he was also playing first base in the steroid era where you're bumping up against people with these monster numbers. He did win an MVP, won a Gold Glove, and kind of overlooked a little bit because Houston in those days was, kind of overlooked. It's a much bigger city now, much more of a national city. But Bagwell, Biggio, the heart and soul of those Houston teams that were really good in the Central, was the main competition against the Cardinals for so many years, and Jeff Bagwell was that guy. So I got him at number 3.
Two odd little things about Bagwell. His birthday, the exact day and year, is the same day as Frank Thomas's birthday. That's kind of odd. Frank Thomas and Bagwell having the same birthday. And he was a throw-in in a trade. This happens a lot. I mean, Ryan Sandberg was one of those guys who's kind of just a throw-in at the end, and Hall of Famer, and Bagwell was a throw, just kind of an extra player for a veteran. And look what he did. I mean, fantastic. And most people lift their front foot when they bat. He picked up his back foot. I don't know if he remembered that, but he picked up his back foot when he batted. I just always thought that was
he had
so
a very
odd.
wide stance too.
Oh, yeah, like
Yeah.
he's riding a horse or something like that.
Doing the splits, yeah.
Yeah. So but that's the great thing about baseball. I mean, you can be every size or shape or throw the ball differently or a different style. Batting's the same way. I mean, Carew and Bagwell, that's just two unique stances right there. So yeah, Jeff Bagwell, he made my honorable mentions. Always liked him.
Well,
Well,
we both went through our number 2,
we
so
all went through number 2. Well, number
go ahead.
1. Oh, go ahead.
Do your honorable mentions before we do our number ones.
I got a few honorable mentions. I tell you what, Jim Thome, I was looking at Jim Thome, and there was just 612 home runs. Come on. And what a career. 22 seasons, played with 6 teams. Peoria, Illinois guy, a local fella. Keith Hernandez, I wanted so desperately because he's such maybe one of the 2 best defensive first basemen I ever seen in my lifetime. He got to play with the Cardinals too, but he just didn't crack my top 5. But I love Keith Hernandez, 17 years in the big leagues and 2 world championships. And man, part of that infield that was so good with the Cardinals. Willie McCovey, Willie Stargell, they were 2 guys I considered. Let's see. I had another list somewhere around here with some of them on there. Oh, Steve Garvey, Mr. Consistency. I think it was 6 or 7 seasons of 200 hits. A winner everywhere he went. Some of the biggest forearms I've ever seen on a human being. And Jeff Bagwell was on that list. These are just some of my honorable mentions right there.
Well, my honorable mentions, I already talked about Carew. I also had Stargell as an honorable mention. 57.6 WAR. But a lot of that WAR came as an outfielder. But I didn't really realize this. I figured Stargell was about a 265 lifetime hitter, 282 lifetime hitter to go along with those 475 home runs.
MVP?
Hall of Famer, MVP, seven-time All-Star, and the heart and soul of that 1979 Pittsburgh team that was so
Pops.
loaded with talent. Yeah. I had Hernandez on there because I figured if I didn't put Hernandez on there, people from St. Louis are going to call me out. Uh, but Hernandez is kind of like Carew. The power numbers when there, hit a lot of doubles. And his WAR was 60.3, 296 batting average. 11 gold gloves, MVP. Same year as Stargell, they split the MVP. I also put Don Mattingly on here
Oh yeah.
because there was a 6 year period where Don Mattingly was the best hitter in the American League. Power, average, great defense, 9 gold gloves, won an MVP. And if his back wouldn't have went out, he would have been one of the all-time greats. And I also included Joey Votto. Um, 64.4 WAR, 294 batting average, 6 All-Star games, MVP, 356 home runs, a Gold Glove, 920 OPS. And Votto is going to be one of those that's going to be probably 7, 8 years. He'll probably make the Hall of Fame then. Um, but I like Votto. I like his makeup. And
I did too.
yes, so let's talk about our number one pick.
Well, I'll show his picture right there. And I never took him for granted. I remember as a younger man when he came onto the team about his second year. And I remember him and Scott Rowland were outstretching. They were young guys. Maybe Rowland was just getting into his prime, but Albert was young. And I was like, man, what a blessing. We're going to get to see these two guys for the next 10 years. Well, Albert played here for 11 years. And I'll tell you what, I look back at that 11 years, and that was probably the best 11 years I've ever seen out of a player. Uh, I mean, we got used to 300 plus batting average, 100 RBIs, 100 runs scored, and I think that 11th year he didn't quite get to 100 runs scored. But what a career! I mean, them 11 years went quick. In baseball years, time flies. You see the young player come up, and a lot of these Vince, we were young men when some of these guys came to the league, and we saw their whole career, and they played 20 years, and now they're gone. It just comes and goes so quickly. But Albert played for St. Louis, and then he broke our hearts and went out to the Angels.
Didn't
And
break my heart. Bye. Enjoy
I,
Orange County.
I'm still not over it. It just was shocking. He went out to California, and I don't know if he regretted it, but I don't know if they'd ever love him as much as we did. I mean, we were already building that statue right next to stands, but anyway, he went out there and then he played with the Dodgers and kind of got a reboost in his love for the game. And then he came back here and it was like magic. The first couple of months were a little shaky, but my God, he came on like a gangbusters there at the end. Had a long, long career. What else can you say about this guy? 3-time MVP, Rookie of the Year, 11-time All-Star, 2 World Series, 2 Gold Gloves. A lot of these big power first basemen didn't win Gold Gloves, but he did. 6-time Silver Slugger, a batting title, and 22 seasons. That's a long time to be playing. I looked at one of the things I looked at. He played most of his career at first base, over 2,000 games first base. He played over 110. He played 110 games at third base because when he came up, he was playing third base. DH 640 games. I thought that would have been more. He also played second base one game, shortstop one game, 269 games in left field, 40 games in right field, and believe it or not, our Pujols pitched one game. I think his ERA is 9, but he did pitch in one game, came in and pitched. Yeah, he was terrible, but he got to do it. It was like exciting, and we had a big lead in the game. But the only two positions he didn't play was catcher and center field. Uh, you know, I'll let you go over the numbers, but the thing I remember about him most, the Bradledge home run in the playoffs. it was definitely Houston was going to go on to the World Series, and all of a sudden Albert hits a ball that went over the train tracks, and Houston and that stadium got quiet. You could hear a pin drop. I never heard that loud to that quiet so quickly in my life. The 3 home runs in the World Series against Texas Rangers, just a handful of guys have done that. And my favorite thing said about Albert Pujols over the years, Mike Shannon would always talk about Albert setting up the pitcher because he would see what the pitcher was going to do and set him up. And he said, he better not throw him a fastball. He better not throw a fastball. And of course, the pitcher would try to hit him with a fastball after setting him up, and Albert would take it out of the park. And Mike Shannon said, trying to get a fastball past Albert Pujols is like trying to get the sunshine past the rooster. I always like that when Mike Shannon would say that. So anyway, I'll let you take care of all the statistical things in the WAR, but Albert Pujols, what a pleasure, and it was fun watching him. And he's about 4 years away from going to the Hall of Fame. So anyway, that was my number one.
296 career batting average. He's not a member of the 3,000 hit, 500 home run. He's a member of the 3,384 hit, 703 home runs, 2,218 RBIs, which is amazing, a 918 OPS. Happy's not the word. I think it was beneficial that he went to Anaheim because his body started breaking down almost immediately. And if he would have signed a $250,000 deal and then played out 10 years in St. Louis where he just could not play at that level anymore, that may have tainted him a bit. Like, man, we paid you all this money, we've made you a gazillionaire, and now you're loafing. He wasn't loafing. He had the plantar fasciitis, which a couple of years he was playing in a lot of discomfort. And then the later years with the Angels, the bat did slow down a bit, and he was easier to strike out. He started getting holes in his strike zone, and I'm kind of glad that happened in Anaheim where we didn't see it that much, because what we saw in St. Louis was so good that it didn't really taint, because I didn't watch the Angels when he was having these, seasons that were still pretty dang good, but, just not what we were used to. So I remember a game, Wood's rookie season. I think it was his rookie season or second season. The Cubs are playing the Cardinals, and my buddy, who's a huge Cardinal fan, is like, yeah, we're going to see this. I said, oh, you wait till you see what we're throwing at you, because it was Wood's rookie season. And we were up big time, like 8-0 with, I don't know if there was a runner on, and Pujols came up to bat, and I thought, he's seen him once or twice. He's going to hit a home run this time off of him. I don't care what Wood throws him. And it was like, as soon as I thought of the next pitch, I don't even remember the pitch, it 450 feet away. And I thought, at that time, there's no other human being on the planet that would have hit that ball out but Albert Pujols. And I thought that so many times against Lidge, who was almost unhittable that year.
Yes.
You're in Houston, that crowd is going crazy, and you hit the ball that it wasn't just a home run. It was like, my gosh, it was a laser beam that almost went to space. And I love the story. And people forget that Houston won that series. They're flying to St. Louis in the Houston plane, in the pilot saying, if you look on the left, there's, the city of Birmingham or something like that. And if you look on the right, you can see Albert Pujols' home run ball. And the whole plane broke up. And the veterans from Houston said, the pilot's saying that just loosened us up. We could go out and win that series. But if you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and look at that. It is the neatest home run I've ever seen. It's like someone hit the mute button, and you're it's almost like an out of body experience. Like, did I just see that? he's rounding the bases in dead silence, to this crowd who it was like deafening to nothing. So yeah, we
Andy
both
and
were number one.
Andy Pettit was on the bench, and they show him, and he's going, "Oh my God!" That was part of the magic of that moment was Andy Pettit's response to that hit. But I remember watching with a bunch of friends, and we were just I don't know. It seemed like time disappeared. There was like maybe 2 minutes of us just jumping up and down. We couldn't believe it, even though the Astros were a very good team it didn't look good for us, but we hung on for a little bit longer right there. One of the greatest home runs I've ever seen.
Yeah. Albert Pujols number one, and there really wasn't much of an argument there. So, oh, JJ, what are you opening up?
Well, I have sponsored by Tom Majay. Tom got me a pack of 1986 tops. We're going back to the old days. We might even find a Bo Jackson rookie card in here. This was the Bo Jackson year. Yeah. How about that? So thank you, Tom. One of our
What were you doing in 1986?
1986. Well, had a bad breakup that year, and in 1987 I went in the Navy. So 86. No, that's the year I went in the Navy. I think 86 was the year I went in the Navy. Yeah. Let me get the cards in here. I forgot what that year looked like. Let me see. They're all discombobulated here. All right. My first one is Atlanta Brave Rick Camp. Remember old Rick Camp?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there he is. A lefty right there coming in at you.
He had that game that went extra innings like in the 15th inning, and he had never gotten like a hit, and then he hit a home run, pinch hitting or something like that. He had a weird deal like that. So
I'll be darned. Good memory. Well, here's a guy I didn't even know played with Texas Rangers, but Texas Ranger Glenn Brummer. You remember what he's known for more than anything?
stealing home, but I didn't know he ever played for the Rangers.
I didn't know. There he is.
82 stole home for the Cardinals in the August game. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a remember. I got some memorabilia from that one. Toronto Blue Jay Manny Lee. I vaguely remember Manny Lee. I do remember this guy, but I don't know anything really about him. I can't remember. I don't know what kind of
That's
career
not
he
ringing
had.
any bells for me.
Yeah. Oh, here's one. Played with many teams, but here he is with the New York Mets, Ray Knight. Big part of
Ray
that
Knight.
comeback where the Bill Buckner ball. He was one of the guys on base. Mookie Wilson and Ray Knight. So there he is right there. Married to Nancy Lopez, the golfer, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, for a while he was. He took over for Pete Rose, I think, at third base when Pete Rose was traded to the Phillies.
I think you're right. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
a Cincinnati Red player for a while. A nice career here. Denny Walling with the Astros.
Ah, Denny Walling.
Denny Walling right there. Oh, it's good to see these guys. Oh, this guy was a high touted young player. Had a nice career. Met Clint Hurdle. Remember old Clint Hurdle? Yeah, there he
Yeah,
is.
played for the Royals and the Mets and managed the Rockies and the Pirates. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, this may be my wife's favorite Cardinal right here. And my friend Scott, I got a lot of friends that this is their favorite Cardinal. Willie McGee. A lot of people who grew up in the 80s. You
Yeah,
couldn't,
my
he,
favorite Cardinal.
there you go. The thing that made me, he became a legend of St. Louis. It was game 3 of the 82 World Series. He hit 2 home runs and stole a home run that game. Willie McGee. Oh, the Friday night you were playing football, and so was I.
In
Yeah, that's
Jerseyville,
right.
Illinois. Yeah.
I was in Potosi, Missouri. We were from Hillsboro. Yeah. Oh, this the guy. I have a weird story about California Angel, Jeff Zahn, and for years I called him Geoff. I didn't know that was Jeff Zahn. I said, "Hey, there's old Geoff right there." Didn't know that was how some people spell Jeff.
He had some good
Oh,
years.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Uh, I love this guy. Great player, great manager, unique kind of fella. San Francisco Giant Roger Craig.
Oh yeah.
Managed him a lot of successful years right there.
Taught the splitter to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, yeah. I believe he pitched for the Cardinals too. There was a
Yeah, I
time
did.
period.
Cardinals pitched for the Mets. Lost 20 games 1 year for the Mets. So
uh, New York Yankee Joe Crowley, and I remember he played with some other teams too. But oh,
they
Joe
played with
Crowley.
Cincinnati and Baltimore, I think.
All right, very good. And I didn't know that part of it, but yeah, I remember it. I remember that name.
No,
Oh,
that's Terry Crowley I'm thinking of.
oh, Terry Crowley.
Yeah.
Um, I can't. I forgot. This is a Hall of Famer right here. Toronto Blue Jays, but we know him as Atlanta Brave. Bobby Cox. Look how young he is there.
Oh man.
Been thrown out of more games than any manager in the history of baseball. Right there. Um, John Butcher from the Minnesota Twins. There he is, John Butcher. A guy who had a nice career, Terry Whitfield from the Dodgers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Played for
him.
the Giants too.
Finally, the final card. This guy, he's on the Giants here, but I know him more of a Cincinnati Red. Dan Dreesen. He was one of those players that came up after the Big Red Machine and played over there, and here he is with the Giants. Oh, Dan
Yeah,
Dreesen.
they traded Tony Perez to make room for Dreesen because
Um,
in the
yeah.
76 World Series, Dreesen played DH and had a really good series. And Perez, they thought, well, he's getting older, and we'll
Mm.
give Dreesen first base. And Perez went to Montreal, and then he went to Boston and still drove in hundreds of runs. And Dan Dreesen was not drafted. He is one of the few players who showed up at a tryout camp and actually made it to the major leagues.
How about that? I did not know that. Very
Yeah,
good.
I just remembered it. So
Yeah, outstanding.
saw him interviewed once. He was talking about that. All right. I'm not going as old school as you are. I'm not 1986. I'm 1988. Pops.
Hey, all right. Where were you in 1988? What were you doing in 1988?
I graduated from college and then I moved to Kansas City.
I'll be darned.
Uh, there's the
Oh yeah, I got some
go.
gum over here too.
All right. Let's see what I've got. Uh, uh, went a trip to Fort to the 1989 spring training. We should try this.
We sent it in.
We
Yeah.
should try this and see if we can go to the 1989 spring training. If we could, that would be cool.
Oh yeah.
We're going to start with former Brewer Ernie Riles. I do remember him.
I remember him. Fast guy.
Oh, left-hander for Cleveland, Scotty Bales. And I
Oh yeah.
always thought that he would be a better pitcher than he was. Um, yeah, won 10 games his rookie year. So
Pretty good.
he's the guy. Turn back the clock to 1978. Jim Rice.
Oh yeah. Hall of Famer.
Yes, Hall of Famer. Oh, former Cardinal, former Brewer, former White Sox, Dave LaPointe. He pitched in the 82 World Series for the Cardinals.
Right. We got him in a trade with I think Milwaukee. It was
Yeah,
probably we sent Simmons and Fingers and those guys
yeah,
up
he was
there.
in that trade. Correct. I've got Jim Acker for the Braves. Houston Astros manager Hal Lanier.
Yeah. Man, he was a
Didn't he
coach of the
coach
Cardinals.
for the Cardinals for a while?
He was a coach. Yes, he was.
Okay. Um, former closer for the Orioles, Don Ossie.
I remember him. Don't know anything about him, but I remember him.
Former Mariner, Mike Trujillo. I don't remember him,
I don't remember him either.
but I do know how to pronounce his last name because I went to high school with some Trujillos. So. Oh, the ageless wonder, a very young Julio Franco,
Oh,
who
I
is
was just thinking about him today.
in the 90s.
Yeah, but he was stacked. That dude
Oh
was,
gosh, he was ripped.
yeah.
Yeah, even I think he retired from Major League Baseball at the age of 46 or 47. Then he went on and played in other leagues in the Caribbean and Mexico. But he was still completely jacked up.
Oh, yeah.
Hall of Famer Carlton Fisk.
Pudge, the original Pudge.
Yep. The White Sox.
Yeah.
For the Orioles, Ken Gerhardt.
No, don't remember.
No. All right.
No.
Off me. So, oh, very good player for the Brewers. Jim Gantner.
Oh yeah, 82. He was part of that 82 team.
Gantner and Molitor and Yount at the
Yeah.
top of that
Charlie
lineup.
Moore, Ben Ogilvy, Cecil Cooper, Gorman Thomas.
Great team. All-star outfielder George Bell played a spell for the Cubs too. That's who we
Yeah.
traded to the White Sox for Sammy Sosa.
I'll be darned.
Oh, one of my all-time favorite pitchers, left-hander. I can't believe he did not get more Hall of Fame support. Three-time 20-game winner, and the 78th season, 25-3, Louisiana Lightning, Ron Guidry.
Oh yeah, I
Listen,
love.
listen to this. This is his 78 stats. 35 starts, 274 innings, 25 wins, 3 losses. He had 201 strikeouts, only 71 walks. He completed 13 games. Excuse me, he completed 16 games. Sorry, that's right. He had 248 strikeouts. Completed 16 games. He had 8 shutouts, and his ERA was 1.74.
Wow. I saw him throw up on Game of the Week. He used to chew tobacco, like somebody had a line drive back at him, swallowed the tobacco, and they had to spend about 5 minutes getting him to collect himself. So kids, that did be a lesson to you. Don't be chewing that tobacco out there when you're pitching.
He was one of the few Yankees that I liked from that era.
Yeah.
And this week in baseball, how they would, have some lighter things, and they'd ask players, who's your favorite, whatever, So they asked players, if you could be on a TV show, what would it be? And Ron Guidry, who has this heavy Cajun accent, said, I'd like to be on Dynasty so I could slap Joan Collins.
All right, Guidry. Yeah.
And former manager for the Pirates and Braves, Chuck Tanner.
Oh, Chuck Tanner. Yeah, I love that guy. Good baseball man.
Chuck Tanner was so old school. He was still managing.
How old school was he?
He's still managing in the 80s with he'd have like a spiral notebook this thick, and it would be Cardinals, and it was all handwritten notes. So, and today, everything's on a computer and they know everything instantly, but it's like, pinch hitting for the Cardinals would be Kurt Ford. So he would, turn to the Kurt Ford page and he would look exactly how the pitches were charted and what he couldn't hit, what he could hit. He was still managing that way. That was awesome. So.
Oh, Chuck Tanner. I hadn't thought about him in a long time.
Well, this week, Saturday, JG and I are going to a comedy show. We are not performing, but this is the first time we've seen each other for quite a while, and I'm pretty charged about it.
Yeah.
Our friend Joe the Animal is going to be on that.
He's great.
Yeah, and Kathy Brennan, who's from Springfield, Illinois, and whose husband is a listener of the show. She'll be on there, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Come on out.
Yeah, come on out. It's in Cadet, Missouri. And if you don't know where that's at, you're not alone. Just drive in Missouri till you find a drive-in theater. You're there. It's one of the few drive-ins left. So anyway, well, JJ, I hope you have a good week.
You too. We're getting close.
I hope something exciting happens again next week. But after next week, spring training. So if something happens exciting this week and then we spill into spring training, it's going to be heaven.
Heaven.
One card, one cup, and one beer. So, all right. Thanks a lot.